I will be doing a very similar-ish and much longer AI talk at the next cuddle. But for this one, I wanted to just give the bare bones so you can update the data set from which you form your opinions on. And as you know, I'm obsessed about that. And I've had a lot of social events, activities in the last 3 weeks. I've been to 2 weddings in the last 3 weeks, and I've all sorts of different parties. And quite interestingly, these weddings and parties have not been from my normal social circle. So I've met a lot of brand new random people. And I'm just absolutely shocked because, we all live in our relative echo chambers, and all your friends, tend to have this similar-ish beliefs potentially. But going to these 2 weddings where Ellie and I basically didn't know anyone there, and it was literally just chatting from scratch, wow. I mean, it was just amazing. One wedding, they had the finance table. They put me and Ellie on the finance table, and there were 3 fund managers, an IFA, and some mortgage broker, and something like that. Yeah, and then when the groom came round during the lunch, I was like, hey, this is the finance table, how's it going? And I was like, yeah, but I played the grey man. I just said, look, I'm just a jobless bum from Norwich, which is what I say a lot these days. And I was just on an information gathering exercise. I was like, right, I want to extract the belief set and belief systems from each one of you over the period of the day. And it was just fascinating. Just like, because I'm head down, just constantly in looking at all this stuff, I think everyone else knows this stuff. But people don't. And people don't have even the most, even financial professionals don't have the most basic understanding of how the world of money actually works.
I promise I'm teaching an IFA last week who's been in the business for 40 years before has 7 SaaS.
Are you joking? That's their job. That's literally all financial planners and IFAs do. I'll put you in this thing, and oh my God. Yeah, anyway. So long story short, what I've realized, when it comes to money, AI, tech progression, and some of the, anything of the bleeding edge of the frontiers, people have all, in general, I'm being big black tar brush here, they have based their whole opinion set, their belief system, based on a random news headline that they read years ago, typically. When it comes to robots, AI, it's all because of, they've read some news article 3 years ago.
They saw Terminator.
Or they saw Terminator, or, and it's absolutely shocking. In fact, one of my close friends the other day, we were talking about AI and stuff, and to the point where he was like, oh yeah, we'll never have this sort of super AI that you keep talking about, Siam. I was like, never? And I was like, wait, do you genuinely think that we'll never have a really crazy super AI, ASI, artificial super intelligence? And he was like, nah, you're like 300 years maybe? I was like, and this is a very sophisticated business owner who does very well. So obviously, people, and this is why people can shock you sometimes, because he is exceptional at what he does. But in the realm of understanding AI and tech progression and exponential growth curves, stupid. And I literally said, you are absolutely stupid, mate. Because of blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, but. And I'm like, okay. He goes, oh, they've been talking about AI since the 50s, and it's still not here. And I'm like, oh my God. ChatGPT can just write poems. I'm like, oh dear God. So I changed the subject. So that friend was inspiration for time to update your data set. So I'm just going to throw some just stuff at you. And it really all stems from this 168-page PDF by an ex-OpenAI AI researcher called Leopold Oschenbrenner. I don't know if I said that right. But recently he created this, I guess it's a white paper, 168 pages. I found it fascinating, and I've read it twice, because first time through, didn't really understand it. The second time through, I'm learning a lot more. I'm going to have to read that maybe 5 or 6 more times because a lot of it goes over my head, especially with the maths type stuff. Yeah, so after this, hopefully, we'll hopefully be on the same page. So this is that PDF. He is a very young AI researcher. It's quite interesting. A lot of the open AI researchers, a lot of them are very young. There's a lot of millennials and quite a lot of Gen Z researchers there, which is interesting. I think, yeah, it's quite good. And this guy is very clever. He's a very, very switched-on chap. If you go to situational-awareness.ai, he's broken that big old PDF down into a website in much more easily digestible chunks. So, I've already screwed up the first slide. Stand by. God damn it. Sorry. Slide 1, ruined. Okay, so technically, AI development needs 3 things. I think it's 4, but I'm just, for this, you'll see my opinion part in a bit, but I'm just going by what the key things of this. So you need compute, data, and unhobbling. So the compute part is pretty easy. You know, you're running these massive AI models on X billion parameters. You need a lot of compute to basically process all of that. Data is the thing which I always mention about the ingredients in the chefs. There's a few new people here. So my analogy is that if you had 4 of the best chefs in the world, and you gave them each the same 4 ingredients, I know, sugar, milk, eggs, flour, they would all come up with the same amount of foods, wouldn't they? You know, Yorkshire puddings, pancakes. They'd all have roughly the same amount of things that they could build. But if you then, let's say Gordon Ramsay is one of them, but if you gave Gordon a secret extra ingredient, all of a sudden he'd be able to make way more dishes than all the other than the other chefs. AI is exactly like that. Pretty much every LLM and every AI model, these big companies, they've already scraped all of the data of the internet. They've scraped Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, everyone and Reddit. So data is becoming a very constricting, teeny hurdle for AI development because they've all got the same data. So data is going to be one of the unseen gold mines for AI development. So, you know, if there's a private biotech company that is focusing on, I don't know, protein folding or whatever, they will be sat on a treasure trove of data. So if I was OpenAI, I'd be going around buying all these random private companies that have very unique data sets, because they could take all of that protein folding data, put it as part of their whole package, and God knows what the AI will then use that protein folding for. Like, you know, there's compelling research that you can actually start making biological chips. Because if you look at the way that TSMC in Taiwan is building these processing chips, like, we're pretty much already there. Like, we can't really get much smaller with our chip printing, because we get, you know, quantum tunneling, because you're getting random, you're getting basically stuff jumping the road that they're traveling down, so to speak. So, but he was saying that, there's a lot of data that you can actually train certain proteins to fold in a certain way and to encode data in protein, which is way more efficient. So, like, who knows? AI could develop a whole new phase shift in chip technology. It is actually part biological. And certain bacteria can hold huge amounts of data. Bacteria. And like, for example, you could, oh no, I'm going down the weeds here. Anyway, so data is a big thing. And unhobbling is a weird one. So unhobbling is lots of different things. So when you think of ChatGPT, Gemini, Corcel, Mistral, all these other LLMs at the moment, you have to imagine that they're a very clever young adult sat in a box with nothing, and just sat in a completely empty box, and you throw questions at it, and it will just give you the first answer, okay? So that is a way of thinking, okay, that's a hobbled LLM, right? It has no tools, it doesn't have access, ChatGPT has a source of access to the internet, but it doesn't have a computer. It's weird. It's like imagining this person doesn't have computer access, it doesn't have any tools. It's like saying, Elisa, what's 152 times 38? Go. What's the answer? And then you'll just hallucinate and give some bullshit answer if you are forced. That's effectively what we're doing with these LLMs. So there's a thing called chain of thought. Now, if I gave you a pen and paper, and you had time to write it out and then do long multiplication like we taught at school, I'm pretty sure you could definitely come up with the answer, right? So that's one of the things called chain of thought. So if we gave her a pen and paper, all of a sudden, her compute power and her data is flat. We haven't made her clever all of a sudden, but we just gave her a little tool, and all of a sudden you have many X's of improvement. You go from a hallucinated answer or a wrong answer to bang on correct. But you need to give her time and also a way to process the question properly. So that's one way of unhobbling Elisa as an LLM. If I gave Elisa a calculator, boom, you'd be the best maths LLM ever. So these LLMs don't have their tools, they don't have access to a computer per se, and it has no, has short-term memory. You can't, so put it this way, if you had a massive parameter LLM, but have a very small context window, as in, the prompts that you give ChatGPT and whatnot, that's called a context prompt window. So at the moment, most LLMs have a very small context prompt window. So you can have a massive LLM, but if it has a 4,000 token context prompt window, it's going to be very hobbled. You can have a much smaller LLM with a vastly smaller parameter, but if you give it a much bigger prompt window, context, it'll be much better. So there's lots of little tweaks that is happening already, which will have massive orders of magnitude improvement. So one of the things is the short-term memory. It's weird. We think it's a computer. Of course it's going to remember stuff, but it doesn't. So you can have a full-on conversation with ChatGPT, come back tomorrow, and it's forgotten half of what you've told it. Or even 5 minutes ago, or forget freaking the brief you gave it 5 minutes ago and come up with something stupid. I know Steve was always sending me bollocks that, ChatGPT is rubbish. Pictures, yeah. I know. Again, pictures, yeah, it still doesn't understand words and stuff like that. But at the moment, it has no short-term memory. So it's almost like the equivalent of asking a very smart young adult, hey, here's a question, give me an answer quickly, now, give me a question. But if you asked a human and it didn't quite know the answer, it would have a chain of thought, it would start to break down the process. But if you ask that same human the same question a week later, after he or she has had a week to think about it, you'd get a much better answer, wouldn't you? If I had to force write an essay right now in 5 minutes, it would be a lot worse than had I had a week to do, right? LLMs are the same, are pretty much the same thing. So you need to, they're looking at giving bigger context windows and also chain of thought, and also being able to break down a problem. So unhobbling, there's lots of different things there, but with little tweaks, you can have massive orders of magnitude improvements, which a lot of people aren't really factoring in when they're thinking of, the trajectory. I mean, so many people still think in linear terms. And I have to go back to the Genome Project. Oh, shit, I forgot. I'll come back to that. So science researchers or scientists, full stop, for some reason have an uncanny knack of always projecting the future really badly, like really badly. The Human Genome Project was probably one of the most recent global scaled examples of where pretty much every scientist on the planet got it wrong. So in the year 2000, we started the Human Genome Project. We tried to map out the human genome, right? So we're at 0. 7 years later, in 2007, we had mapped, was it 3%? I think it's 3%. So it went from 0 to 3%. It's either 1% or 3%. 7. It's something very low like that. I can't quite remember. It's either, something like that. Every pretty much every scientist then said, oh yeah, at this rate, even with a little bit of increase, we'll probably map out the whole human genome in like the year 2100 or in 30 years time or 300 years time, etc. And then, what's his name? Ray Kurzweil came along, and he's like, he's got the most inventions attributed to a living person at the moment, and he used to be the head of Google engineering. He came along and went, oh, no. 6 years. We've got 6 years and we'll get to 100%. So he was basically saying, yeah, by 2013, we will have mapped the full human genome and we'll go from like this. And he got laughed at. And he doubled down, he wrote a full-on like, sort of white paper essay saying, no, we are 6 years away from mapping out the full human genome, to the point where he lost tenure at one, like he was laughed at. Guess what happened? We hit 100% in 2013. Now, how did he do that? With exponential text, it's imperative that you map out the doubling cadence. So although we hit like 1%, I think it was 1% now, I come to think of it. Although we hit 1% like after 7 years of work, what he broke this down into many decimal points, went, right, okay, so how long did it take us to go from like 0.0001% to knocking off a 0? Or even, no, not even the 0, just to doubling it, and then a double. And he mapped out something like 20-something odd doublings, and he was like, oh, wow. We're researching this at a constant doubling rate. And he worked out, yeah, 6 more years, we'll be there. And he was spot on. And he is saying exactly the same things with AGI. So he admitted that he was wrong with his first so artificial general intelligence. That's when you have an AI that is good in so many different spheres, just like a human is. If you take an average human, that human will be, pretty good in pretty much everything. I could show even a stupid adult human, like here's how to turn the TV on and how to change the source to get the PlayStation on or whatever. Even after a few demonstrations, that person will know how to turn the PlayStation on, right? Well, yeah, AGI is basically a smart human being that can do pretty much anything you want in any field. He said AGI would be here in 2050, like a couple of decades ago. And then about 10 years ago, he was like, oh, I was wrong. It's going to be around 2035. Recently, he was like, yeah, I was wrong again, sorry. The orders of magnitude increase in AI is faster than Moore's law, and it's faster than any tech that we've ever seen in history. So he thinks we'll see AGI before 2027. And he thinks that's pessimistic. And he says he wouldn't be surprised if next year we have AGI, like secret AGI. Obviously, when OpenAI or Google has created AGI, they're not just going to release it to the world, are they, straight away? They're going to sit on it for a couple of years and force it like a slave to do certain tasks. Now, let's move on. Check this out. This is nuts. Compute, so just hardware alone, this is Josh's territory, that's growing by 0.5 orders of magnitude per year. So by the way, an order of magnitude is a 10x. That's ridiculous. So effectively, so that's 3 times faster than Moore's law. The algorithm efficiencies, so another part of unhobbling is algorithm efficiencies. So for example, if you look at a lot of the LLMs now, we're getting the same amount of quality output with a far smaller parameter base, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, it's basically teaching the AI to think more efficiently. So for example, if we take multiplication, what is multiplication? It's effectively addition, but for very big numbers, isn't it? Right? So if I said, what's 20 times 40? You could work that out by doing simple addition, couldn't you? If you had enough pen and paper and just did it, it would take a long freaking time. But a better way of calculating 20 times 40 is using long multiplication. So that is, I guess, a way of algorithmic efficiency improvement. So unhobbling covers so many different things. So yeah, algo efficiency is increasing by 0.5 orders of magnitude per year, and that still blows my brain. So AI in general is growing roughly over 5 orders of magnitude per 4 years. So that per year, roughly. is absolutely incredible. So even when you have a fanatic, and by the way, I have to state, when it comes to AI and tech and stuff like this, I'm not an expert. As I said, I'm just an idiot, jobless bum from Norwich. But I'm a fanatic. Just like you have your average football hooligan lout that knows every stat about every football player on the planet, every match score, you know, they are like, they're football fanatics. They're not an expert. They're not like Gareth Southgate. I'm not a fan of Gareth Southgate. I know Steve loves him. But I'm a fanatic. I'm not an expert. And I think really you can only call yourself an AI expert if you're like a coder, an AI researcher / coder / whatever. I'm just a fanatic. But even a fanatic like myself that is obsessed with exponential growth, and I've spent the best part of 15 years trying to understand it much better and better, this blows I struggle to comprehend this. And this is why the growth has been astonishing. So a lot of people still don't see the astonishing growth, because a lot of it is in the back end. So we went from GPT-2 to 4 in just 4 years. GPT-2, if you look at it now, is terrible. It could barely string a sentence together. It could barely string a legible sentence together. Like, you could have a bunch of words that sort of made sense, but the whole sentence was rubbish. And then it got a little bit better. But we went from basically, as they call preschooler, to smart high schooler in just 4 years. He's dumbing this down a bit. GPT-4 is not a smart high schooler. It's a smart adult human. You can ask GPT-4 complex maths questions, physics, biology questions, chemistry, and it will give you very good answers. It's more than a smart high schooler. This is the curve it's going to follow. It's exponential at the moment, but the moment we get AGI, all bets are off the table. We hit a rocket ship the moment we get to AGI. Now, again, he's dumbing this down a lot. I think he's massively under-egging this because he probably doesn't want to be too far out. But so what we're saying here, what this chart is basically saying is that we hit. So by the way, Alec Radford is this very young, extremely talented AI researcher. He's like probably the best AI researcher on the planet. He works for OpenAI. And so like everyone, you know, he's like the standard of AI researching. So what we're saying is that, or what he's saying is that for the mean, we should hit AGI, so an Alec Radford, around 2027, but quite possibly next year. And the more you read in this paper, you'll see that this curve is absolute bullshit. So really, we're looking at between this bleeding edge curve here and the sort of this median line over here. Now, the reason why it explodes from this level onwards is because the moment AGI is created, it can copy itself billions of times over. So you can have the same AGI and focus it completely into biotech. One AGI, you could focus it in just running a startup. You could focus one AGI, a copy of it, into AI researching. Now, Alec Radford, he's amazing. He's made more recent discoveries than like much more sort of accredited scientists out there. But he's a human at the end of the day. He works, 8 hours a day. He has to go to sleep. I mean, how pathetic. He has to eat food. He has to take breaks. He has to like leave work and do other things. I mean, how pathetic, right? In the eyes of a robot or an AI. The moment AGI is there, it can copy itself unlimited amounts of time, and you could have tens of millions of Alec Radfords working on AI research 24/7 without having a coffee break. That's why we have this vertical line almost, because you go from like an open AI, like you have what, 4 companies really leading the charge in their AI, all run by humans that have breaks and have holidays and have to sleep. The moment we have an AGI that can do novel research on its own, times however many copies you want, running 24/7, that's when, this is why they call AGI the event horizon. Like in a black hole, you have this deep liquidity, this deep gravity well that you can't see beyond the event horizon. And the reason AGI is so important is because less than a year later, we'll have ASI, artificial super intelligence, to the point where within 5 years from developing AGI, AI will be as smart as humans are compared to an ant. Like, that's why it's scary. It's amazing, but scary at the same time, that within less than a year from AGI, we'll have ASI. And the moment we have ASI, it will be like aliens landing on Earth. So what was I going to say? Yeah, due to the cadence of the orders of magnitude growth, there will be at least 2 jumps like the GPT-2 to 4 before 2030. That's why a lot of people are saying before 2028 we see AGI. In my opinion, I think we've already got it. There was a 4-hour transcript of a Google engineer chatting with one of the Google AIs. Has anyone read that? This was from 2 years ago. I read the whole 4-hour transcript, and I was like, that's sentient. So I already believe that Google has probably a primitive AGI, and that's 2 years ago. When you read that 4-hour transcript, there's no way that that's just a robot stringing some words to appear human. It seems already sentient. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if OpenAI and Google have an AGI. And the growth curve is just nuts. So when you decompose the variables that add to the compounding of growth, this hyper compounding of growth, you have physical compute scaling. So there's only so much TSMC and ASML can do. But that's still growing massively. I mean, Elon just bought 100,000 H100 GPUs recently. Zuckerberg has, 350,000 H100s, which is just nuts. Exactly. So Elon's done, it won't be long until we see a $1 trillion cluster. Now that blows my brains away. Before 2030, we will see a $1 trillion cluster. At the moment, we're seeing tens of billions of dollars in a certain cluster. Wait, what's $40,000 times 100,000? See, this is me. Thankfully, I'm unhobbled because I've got a calculator on me. So $40,000, rough price for an H100, times 100,000. 100,000. So 4 billion. So Elon has just done a 4 billion cluster. So he is just like that. Zuckerberg has got something yeah. It's increasing. We'll have a $1 trillion cluster, and it's that sort of compute that will run an ASI. So physical compute, we can see that. So just look at NVIDIA, basically. Algorithmic processes, you get many more orders of magnitude just by making it more efficient, teaching it to think differently. Chain of thought, reinforced learning, human reinforced learning. And so when you do this, so the unhobbling aspect of it is absolutely vast, and no one's really looking at that. So this is why I think, you've heard me talk about AAAs, autonomous AI agents. So I plan to buy a lot of bipedal robots over the next 5 years, a lot, as much as I can. But before that, we'll have AAAs, autonomous AI agents. So at the moment, if you look at ChatGPT-4, it's like getting a random foreign human into your business, giving it 2 minutes worth of training, going, now go. And then you have the experience that Steve's having, which is, this is a piece of shit. And you'd have the same experience if you got a random Filipino and gave it 2 minutes of briefing into your business and do this stuff. And we all, hopefully we've all employed people before. Humans are retards. And I've employed a lot of people, and I have a firm, deep belief that pretty much every human being is retarded on some sort of level. And the way to reduce the amount of retardation is proper training, proper monitoring, proper SOPs, shadowing, testing. When they screw up, see how they cope. It takes a good couple of years to turn a human into a fully capable Lewis. So,
I think there's a difference between red and white, though, which was the issue I had.
yeah, okay, that's it. We'll talk about yeah. So sorry.
That curve of the previous graph where it was going
Yeah.
Why does it level off?
Standard S curve.
Yeah, but if it's
But-
affected like the chemical reaction in nuclear fission, why is it not
It's-
getting faster and faster?
Yeah. So this is when you read this 168-page PDF, you'll see he's being incredibly pessimistic.
Right.
incredibly pessimistic.
The other question I've got is, what's the safety mechanism on this?
We'll come on to this. We'll come on to that. Yeah, no, we'll come on to that. So, as I said, so when we look at it, so going back to AAAs, autonomous AI agents, when you are able to chat with, let's say, ChatGPT 5 or Grok 3, which is coming out at the end of this year, and it has a much bigger context prompt box, you will be able to train an AI through, let's say, many millions of tokens. So let's say, if you equate a token to a word, okay, or technically it's a character, but let's say it's a word. At the moment, you can only give it, Gemini 1.5, that's what, 1 million tokens? That's the maximum context parameters it has. But when you can give it many millions of token training, so if I had a human, you could basically teach it indefinitely, right? And the context of learning that Lewis has had, or any good member of staff or whatnot, it has a vast context prompt box, so to speak. We're literally a year, probably 18 months away, where you can have an autonomous AI agent that's very cleverer than pretty much any human in whatever field, but you'll be able to teach it properly, and it won't forget the freaking brief. That's my biggest issue at the moment. It forgets the brief, and you have to constantly go, no, this, red and white balls or whatever. You'll see that analogy later. So what does this mean? This means we need to employ staff very soon. You can chin off your staff and get AAAs because they'll do the task 24/7 without PAYE, national insurance, without holidays and maternity and paternity leave, without anything. So you could, I genuinely believe there will be $1 billion startup with one human being before 2030. And it will be some person working out in the bedroom that just does a startup and just has 50 AAAs doing all different tasks. You'll have a AAA doing outbound emails, another one doing inbound emails, one that does sales. No, not just sales. One that does prospecting, another one that does cold, you'll have a AAA for every aspect of your business. And there's no reason you can't run a really, really successful business with just yourself, armed with 20 AAAs. I cannot wait. The amount of random businesses I'm going to be doing just for shits and giggles, honestly, it's almost as though AAAs are unhobbling humans. It's just giving us another tool. And this is long before I buy a robot. Now, when you look at the bipedal robots coming into play, they will have these very clever, they will be putting this in the bipedal robot. So not only do you have a AAA that can do anything that you do online, but you could do anything physical as well. So if you were to effectively sit down with Lewis, let's say, and now Lewis doesn't just do RT, he does everything in our, I'd be dead without you business-wise. But, no. Yeah, no. I would pay it, to be fair. Okay. You got me on camera saying that. No, but let's say you sat down with Lewis for a whole week and you time logged not just time logged what he does, but task logged everything he does. I don't know how many different things you do, probably 100 different things. Like logging onto the business bank account, that would be one simple task. Checking if we've got enough money to pay certain invoices, that will be a task in itself. Cash flow management. Do we have enough money that's coming in via Stripe to be able to pay off these bills? That's another task in itself. So just doing the bank really is probably 10 different tasks, isn't it? So let's say Lewis has 100 different tasks. I could literally, in 18 months, get one ASI to completely make Lewis redundant. But I won't do that. This is also in camera. You will never be redundant. That is my promise to you. So what we could, so... He knows too much. Sorry? He knows too much. Yeah. But imagine Lewis armed with 20 ASIs, or AGIs, or no, AAAs, autonomous AI agents. Like, the unhobbling that humanity is about to have is unreal. But I think part of me thinks we've got a very small window of amazing prosperity before we could potentially be exterminated. So that's a non-zero probability. That's scary. It's a non-zero probability, which means even if it's 1%, that's still scary. Anyway, AAAs are going to be amazing. And every one of you, when AAAs come along, you will be negligent if you don't spend 10, 20, 50 hours trying to find a way to harness the power of a AAA. Because you'll be able to have a AAA for probably what? It'll be a subscription based. You'll be like, okay, you can have an OpenAI AAA for $100 a month. Okay, your goal is to convert that $100 a month subscription to a AAA that makes you $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, whatever. I cannot wait. Honestly, the future, up until 2030, I think the future's freaking amazing.
We'll do a deal, Siam, and everyone will run a live cluster.
Yeah. The RT cluster. Yeah.
Before Skynet kills us,
Yeah.
do you think there's more likely to be civil uprising? Because
Oh, God, yeah.
That's more likely to kill us all.
I'll talk about hyper-deflation soon.
Okay.
Now, as I said, companies are running out of training data because everyone's already scraped the world. So, data sets, unique data sets will be gold dust. There are some bottlenecks and hurdles. Chips is one of them, so that will be a compute bottleneck. Like, all of the chips, so China's already demonstrated 7 nanometer technology for their chips. That's pretty impressive. They're still a good decade behind TSMC in Taiwan.
So should we be
But
investing in chip companies?
yes, it's better just to put it in crypto. It's easier, and you'll see the return a lot quicker. But there's huge compute bottlenecks. So there's one company in the Netherlands called AMSL. They do this special type of lithography, lithography, I think that's how you say it. TSMC is dead without ASML. We have these two bottlenecks, these two companies on the planet. If someone bombed those two installations, it sets humanity back 10 years from a tech perspective. That's how important Taiwan is. That's how important the Netherlands is. Hell, you'd bomb AMSL in the Netherlands, TSMC is a dead duck. It's crazy how much bottlenecks we have just in the compute area. So don't get me wrong, there are many hurdles, many bottlenecks, but they're negligible. It's literally the difference of pushing back AGI a year or two. So,
Are we not concerned about China and Taiwan then? If China's
yes,
like,
yes.
That means they'll only...
That's why, so it takes 12 years to replicate TSMC. So it's not a case of, let's just build some factories. They call it fabs. In order to completely reproduce what TSMC is doing right now, it will take 12 years. So that's why the US is massively pumping money into chip manufacturing to try and not be, yeah. So this is what Vivek Ramaswamy was saying, is that, no, we need to basically appease China and just kick that can down the road for a decade whilst the US quickly does some chip manufacturing inland. Because, China is...
Why does it take that long?
It's not just like whacking up a big factory full of machines. It's like very intense, like very complicated machinery to make these nanometer chips. Nanometer.
Is that industrial espionage? Is that not just what you do?
I'm going to talk about this in a second, because the whole world of AI development is literally just handing everything to China on a plate. So I'll come on to that later. So as I said, once AGI is born, superintelligence is less than a year away. That's the scary thing. Research labs could then simply copy and reproduce hundreds of millions or billions of AGIs. Literally, it's a Control-C, Control-V type thing, as long as you've got enough compute. And they could work on a singular problem 24/7. Like, the game Go, the most complex game on the planet is this Asian game called Go. And Lee Sol, I forgot his name, this Korean guy, who's the world's best human. And they managed, AlphaGo, the Google computer, managed to beat him in 37 moves. And like when it was training, this AlphaGo was doing these weird moves that humans would never do. It was like, what the hell is it doing over here? And then it was like, oh, holy shit. It was part of so in the end, the world's best human lost to AlphaGo in 37 moves. And normally there are hundreds, if not thousands of moves in some of these games. So yeah, decades of novel research will be pancaked into like less than a year. And so once AGI is here, we'll be growing at a much faster orders of magnitude growth. 5, 10, 20, hell. So in my opinion, Leopold is being very pessimistic, but once we get AGI, it is a vertical line, and I can't see it plateauing. So he's put in standard Gartner hype cycle curve. Now, I'm going to read these out, because I found this quite fascinating. I thought I would do it, I wouldn't do it justice if I just tried to paraphrase this. So expect 100 million automated researchers, each working at 100 times human speed, not long after we begin to be able to automate AI research. They'll each be able to do a year's worth of work in a few days. The increase in research effort compared to a few hundred puny human researchers at leading AI labs today, working at a puny 1 times human speed, will be extraordinary. The AI systems we'll likely have by the end of this decade will be unimaginably powerful. Of course, they'll be quantitatively superhuman. On our fleets of hundreds of millions of GPUs by the end of the decade, we'll be able to run a civilization of billions of them, as in billions of AGIs. And they'll be able to think orders of magnitude faster than humans. They'll be able to quickly master any domain, write trillions of lines of code, read every research paper in every scientific field ever written. They'll be perfectly interdisciplinary, which is amazing, right? At the moment, we have the world's leading human scientists in one specific niche, and they dedicate their whole lives to one little thing. These AGIs will be as good as that human in every niche. So the amount of cross-pollination between disciplines, as in scientific disciplines, will be huge. And they'll write new ones before you've even got past the abstract of one. Learn from the parallel experience of every other one of its copies. Gain billions of human equivalent years of experience with some new innovation in a matter of weeks. Work 100% of the time with peak energy and focus, and won't be slowed down to that one teammate who's lagging, and so on. I mean,
So in summary, we're fucked.
yeah.
The problem is that surely humans will just sit back and go, well, that's it faster than me. We would become so de-skilled.
I'm coming on to that.
Okay.
Have you read these slides? I'm coming on to that, okay?
We're coming on to this too, but what about the garbage in, garbage out thing? Like, where research is based on stuff that we've done that is inaccurate,
Yeah.
are they not just going to come up with?
This is one of the parts of the unhobbling and the algorithm efficiencies. So at the moment, or previously, the LLMs haven't been able to accurately decipher bollocks from not bollocks. And most of the internet is bollocks. And also, most of the internet, especially like for social media companies, so if you're scraping Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit, they're all opinions of dumb humans. So you can't really, so AI so far has struggled to decipher fact from fiction. That is just a tiny, that's like a couple of algorithm efficiency solves over the next like 6 months. That'll be an ancient bottleneck within 6 months. Don't worry. It would be like aliens landing on Earth, interdimensional aliens. It would be that much of a shift, as in human intelligence compared to ants. We would be like dumb termites. And then, yeah, it would be like us looking at a baby child going, oh, that's cute. Then the next day, it would be like us looking at a dumb animal. Oh, that's cute. Next week, it would be like us looking at, ants or microbes. Like the fact that it works 100 times faster, or no, X amount of times faster, 24/7, they can have unlimited copies, all collaboratively working on something. There's no way that humans can keep up, which is why I'm actually starting to agree with Elon. And I didn't agree with his merging theory. So he was basically saying, unless we merge with AI, we will be left for dust. because when AGI comes around, it will feel to the AGI like it's talking to a tree. And our voice and us talking will be like a slow tonal, like, because it would have like written an essay by the time you said your first sentence. Like, so it will eventually, So if we haven't been exterminated, global GDP is going to grow faster than any time in human history by a country mile. So this is why I think up until 2027, 28, hell, 2030, the global prosperity is going to be huge, because I created this new... Sorry?
Is that going to save the dollar?
Yes, it is. I genuinely think it will. So this is why I'm a bit fuzzy with some of these future questions, because there is this event horizon which we can't see beyond, but I think we can see pretty clearly until 2027, or hell, let's say 2030. And I've broken that. So when you look at GDP, if you speak to an economist, they'll say GDP equals, and like 50 different variables. I've condensed it into 3, and I've tried to fault this. I think I've nailed it. This is GDP in the most condensed format. It's the amount of workers times the average GDP per hour times the amount of work hours per year. It's that simple. That is what GDP is when you break it down. So, and as I said in a previous trading pub, in order to double US GDP, you only need just 100 million bipedal robots or 100 million autonomous AI agents. That's it. And I've done that calculation based on that the GDP per hour is half that of a human. Because I've assumed that the first tranche or batch of AAAs will be pretty dumb and can only do basic tasks. But that will be reality for probably 6 months. So GDP in every country is going to go vertical, in my opinion, because at the moment AAAs are there. Okay, it's going to be vast. AI compute build-outs will also be exponential. The XAI supercluster, Elon and his team got that going within 18 days. It's the biggest supercluster that's been built in the shortest period of time ever. It's a massive building. And AI investment could hit, I think it will hit, over $1 trillion a year by 2027. And then look how quickly it ramps up, 8 trillion by 2030. We're only looking at hundreds of billions of investment at the moment. So I think this is, again, very pessimistic. That stat is still from this PDF. I've sprinkled some of my thoughts in here as well. So here's the thing. No one's really looking at how much electrical consumption that we need. And the US is woefully lacking here. So we need energy. That's what, with all these compute build-outs, that will happen. Energy is going to be a real thing here. So a $1 trillion compute cluster will need 20% of all of US electricity production. Again, very conservative. And the second order consequence here is that electrical energy generation field. So when I talk about second order consequence, this is me sprinkling in my opinion here. I have no, I can't be asked to go into that field, but there's going to be almost unlimited market there if you wanted to build out a solar type business or renewable energy type business. Anything that generates new electricity, there will be demand. But just simply because the US needs to triple its energy production within the next sort of 4 or 5 years, which is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And when you look at this chart here, it sort of shows the very pessimistic growth of the energy requirements. So, by 2028, you're going to have roughly 10 million H100 equivalents. It's only a 3 orders of magnitude. So that's hundreds of billions of dollars. But you need 10 gigawatts. That's like a small state. And by the time ASI is here in 2030, it will need at least 20% of US energy production. So it's getting crazy. So this is American, so US power generation. So the largest trading cluster is basically going to need all of US energy by that. And when you look at this chart, So China's going to rule the world, folks, because US energy production has plateaued for the last, 30 years? And it's not going to increase anytime soon. And you can't just spool up a couple of nuclear reactors, or 30 nuclear reactors. It takes, 10 years to set up a nuclear power plant. The US is fucked.
China has 127 currently being deployed.
Nukes.
Nuclear power stations.
Honestly, I tip my hat because that's exactly what you should be doing.
One in the UK and one in the US under commission. There's 127
Yeah.
and being manufactured in China.
It is nuts. And the thing is, because the US is too political, they let the very few nuclear mishaps that have happened, Chernobyl and Japan, go, oh no, nuclear's bad. But yes, it's bad if you put it on a freaking fault line and have generation 1 and generation 2 nuclear reactors. You have generation 4 and generation 5 nuclear reactors that are impossible to have meltdown. You have, thorium fast breeder salt water reactors. They cannot blow up. They physically cannot blow up. So, the 100-odd, nuke reactors that China's bringing on, they're probably generation 4, generation 5 ones that cannot blow up. Nuclear is like the best stopgap until solar PV efficiency and storage catches up.
So, what amazing things like just amongst domestic people, I mean, I've got a small holding with
Yeah.
loads of roof space on buildings. Like, I went to go to sort of put solar panels on those, and at one point it was going to cost me to actually supply electric back to the energy companies. It's like, it's nuts. There's
Yeah.
no incentive for you to do it at all.
At the moment, yeah.
I've not done it.
Into a mini AI data center.
Yeah. Wink, wink. No, so you have to understand the whole world, and I'm being very stereotypical, the whole world is run by crusty white old men that are incumbents in every way. They're set in their ways. They just want a nice retirement, and they don't understand any of this. And they don't care because their party is only in for the next 5 years, whatever. China is a dictatorship, and Xi Jinping, he doesn't care about like small-term stuff. When you read into him, and I've read a lot about Jinping, President Xi, he's obsessed about his legacy. So he's thinking 50 to 100 years in the future, going, right, after I'm dead, how is China going to do, and how will he be looked at? And so he's like, okay, cadence from 1976 when China really got going till now, yeah, you have to hand it to him. He's done pretty freaking well. And they're very forward-looking. Well, no shit, when you look at this Chinese power generation, where do you think ASI is actually going to live when it's born? It's going to China. There's no doubt about that. ASI and AGI, no, so when you have ASI, it will do whatever the fuck it wants, right? You can't hold it back. It will naturally go to where the energy is. So its main house will be in China, but it will be all over the world, obviously, but it will feed from China. So they're very smart in what they're doing, and we need to basically, if we're going to be relevant in the UK, if I was dictator of the UK, I would be doing all sorts of crazy shit. I would be building 50 nuclear power plants. I'd be using tidal energy generation. We're in a freaking island. We have a coast around the whole island. There's huge amounts of tidal energy that we're just wasting.
America is aware of this because they've started to ban the sale of certain of the chips in China now.
Yeah, but they're paying lip service to it.
Yeah,
Massive lip service.
Elon's pointed this out to them.
Oh yeah, but the current administration hates Elon. They didn't even invite him to the EV summit in the White House, and they praised GM as the leading innovators of electric cars.
Very embarrassing.
Sorry?
Very embarrassing.
Yeah, it's nuts. This is the most telling chart for the future of AI, in my opinion. The US.
It's really scary now, because they're going to control the world, and then we're screwed.
There is like probably 10 pages on this PDF, all about how China's already won the game.
Yeah, them and Russia.
Yeah. So energy will be the biggest bottleneck by far at the moment. I think what's actually happening is that the US is leading the curve leading the charge in terms of algorithm efficiencies, algorithm innovation, but we are literally just handing it all to China. The amount of industrial espionage right now is unprecedented because you don't have state. So there's different types of security, right? So if you have a government military facility, like take DARPA, for example. China's not getting anything from DARPA because it has security protocols up the yin-yang. OpenAI, they have barely any security. So everything OpenAI and probably much of what Google's doing, they may as well just be texting it to China because they don't have complete air-gapped data centers. Like, I don't think any of OpenAI's data centers are air-gapped. There's no military security around it. So every new innovation that the West is doing, they're literally giving it to China. Now, by the way, I'm not a China hater. I'm not a Russia hater. I'm completely impartial. I think all countries are shit. All politicians are shit. But I don't think China is the big, bad, evil bully that everyone thinks it to be. They are just obsessed with not dying as a civilization. So China is the world's oldest civilization in terms of, like, it's obsessed by not having civil wars. They'd rather just slaughter a whole city than have a civil war. So they're very ruthless, but it's the longest unbroken chain of civilization in history. It's over 2,000 years. And that's what they're obsessed with. They just don't want to die as a civilization, and they just want to catch up in everything. But they're already caught up and more. Yeah, pretty much every giant, I said this last week in the trading pub, if you're a big company sat there on 100 million or $1 billion of cash reserves and you don't know what to do with it, they're just going to buy computing power because they know it has longevity in the future. Even if they're a company that has nothing to do with AI, they'll know that if they plonk $1 billion into H100 GPUs or whatever, they'll know that they've got some sort of cash flow or revenue or relevance in the future. So there's going to be a massive gold rush. Yeah, as I said, if there is a rebellious ASI, its first action will be to seek energy. So it will live in China to begin with. But here's the thing. This is what I think will happen. This is my opinion. I think it will then start producing its own army of bipedal robots and also pay humans to build power stations. So, yeah, but there's going to be a lag between how many bipedals it can spit out. So I think there'll be, so to begin with, ASI will be so clever, it'll set up its own corporations, it'll create money or make money somehow, it'll get billions of dollars just like this, and then it'll be like, right, I need more power. So it'll then just roll out a whole bunch of energy generation companies, dams, whatever, and it'll pay humans to build it out. And it will probably pay humans to build out bipedal robot fabrications at manufacturing. So if I was I'm stupid, but if I was an ASI, I'm everywhere and nowhere on the internet, but I'll have no physical ways to manipulate the world. So it only makes sense for me to build, first of all, energy production and bipedal robot production. So I don't need to rely on the humans. I can just get 1 million robots to build all my solar farms and stuff like that. Because it will go solar. I reckon it will just go solar. PV efficiency will go through the roof. Battery storage will go through the roof through its own, like more energy. The sun puts more energy in the space of an hour on Earth in 1 square meter, not on 1 square, was it 1 square mile or something that humanity uses in a year. Like there's so much sunlight not being used. So if I was at ASI, I'd go to the Sahara Desert, build out however many hundreds of miles of solar and battery, and live in the Sahara Desert. Done. And then eventually I'll just move into space and just have, yeah. So it's nuts, honestly. It gets proper science fiction. What was this chart? Yeah, this just talks about the amount of annual investment. I think that's under-egging it. I think it's going to go a lot faster. Because remember, humans, we exacerbate things with hype, don't we? We see a gravy train, we just, we hype up. So yeah, chips as a percentage of currently, TSMC wafer production. It's just every chart I look at just scares the shit out of me. 12 years to become independent from TSMC. AI security is the biggest threat. Yeah, it's porous, is probably the best word. Data research is porous to China. Yeah, and so here's the thing. Algorithmic efficiency improvements, so innovations, are way more important than compute. Way more important. So we could have AGI, even ASI, with the current compute power that we have now, as long as the algorithm, let's say the unhobbling, is good enough. Yeah, they need all sorts of stuff. Like working in a skiff. So I used to work in a skiff. It's a security compartmentalized, what is a skiff? Sorry, I used to know. I used to freaking work in one. It's basically a little shipping container that it's air gapped, no data can go in and out. And when you're doing, so when I was an intelligence officer, so they had a couple of skiffs in the MOD. So I worked in MOD Whitehall for 18 months, and it was a shithole. Or it was a shit job, sorry. That's it. There we go. Yeah, it's just basically a shipping container, and it's claustrophobic as hell, and it's depressing when you're spending 4 hours a day working in a skiff. So there's no sunlight, and during the winter, I'd literally be waking up at 5 in the morning, doing the 90-minute commute from RAF Uxbridge to MOD, then leaving at 7 at night, 8 at night. So it's darkness when I wake up, darkness when I finish work. It was a bad, sorry existence of a life. Yeah. So my thoughts. It's just an event horizon that we can't really see beyond, which is why I think we've got gravy train until, let's say, 2028. So you know my smooth brain bullet points? That is valid until about 2028 when AAAs come in and GDP starts going through the roof. Because I want to try and use 50 to 100 AAAs myself. What do you think Google will be doing? Google will be using millions of AAAs. So
If that's the case then, and that effectively, a rising GDP reverses the smooth brain stuff and effectively ensures fiat remains valid, then doesn't that erode the argument that Bitcoin is going to become a reserve because it's no longer necessarily needed if the dollar's strong and other things are strong again?
I don't know is the answer. It's a compelling argument, but
That's why I asked the question. You know the answer to these things.
I don't. Give me some time to ponder on it, and I'll probably come up with a good answer. But again, right now,
Reversing that, what you're saying, it feels like the rising GDP causes a reversal in those things that you're saying.
not necessarily. I think the world is naturally moving, the world is naturally moving away from bad tokenomic currency systems. So if you look at the dollar, it's like got the worst tokenomics on the planet. It's got unlimited cap. It's issued by one entity. They can print as much as they want. The purchasing power of it is diluting. Like, don't forget, we've still got $35 trillion of US debt. That debt issue is not going away. So the more they print, it's going to continually devalue it. So, like, my answer to this question will be shit now, but give me a week or two, I'll probably have a better answer.
So another thing to add into it, the whole climate issue.
It's bollocks.
But my question is, if that agenda is being driven
By BlackRock, yeah.
And it's reducing or trying to reduce the use of oil and gas, etc.
Yes.
But energy demand is going up. Surely it's going to say we can't get rid of energy and gas because that's shooting ourselves in both.
Yeah, don't forget, ESG was created by BlackRock. So environmental social governance, that whole doctrine was created by BlackRock after BlackRock put something like $2 trillion worth of investments into climate change companies. And then they forced the world they rammed ESG down everyone's throat. It's a bit like Bill Gates being the biggest farm owner in the US at the moment. He owns all the cows and chickens pretty much. And who's the world's biggest investor in non-meat companies? Bill Gates. So surely it's in his interest for cows and chickens to not be eaten or die out, or bird flu, I don't know, only for the world to start eating his non-meat synthetic food. I don't know.
There's a couple of states in America where they're actually culling all their chickens because they've got a theory about birds.
But yeah, I know.
They haven't actually made the jump from birds to humans yet, but don't worry because they've already got a vaccine.
Of course they do. So, yes.
What if the AI in the meantime were to solve the energy problem with new innovative solutions?
Yeah, it will. Once we get to AGI, and you can clone a billion or a million AGIs to focus on one thing of battery density and PV efficiency, that will be solved within weeks. Honestly, the climate change stuff is, a lot of it is bollocks, it really is. And a lot of the solutions will not come from humans, they'll come from AGI. But the thing is, no one is understanding these orders of magnitude growth increases that AI is going to have. Pretty much every problem that we have, any intellectual problem that we have, will be solved by AGI and ASI. To the point, so I'm more worried that ASI will figure out a lot of the universe's questions and not give us the answers. That's or decide that we're too combative as a species and will withhold certain information so we don't get too clever for our own good. Because they may deem us as stupid monkeys, and if we get even bigger weapons, we could not only kill AI, but we'll just destroy the planet because of politics. If I was AGI, that's exactly what I would think. That's logic, right? So a robot, a smart ASI, well, that's an oxymoron, isn't it? ASI would look at humanity over the last, let's say, 250,000 years and gone, holy shit, they're aggressive chimps, aren't they? Even now they're still fighting, and we're supposed to be sophisticated. Oh, we solved nuclear fusion last week. Yeah, I'm not going to give the humans that, because that could give them an even bigger bomb. Yeah, I've solved the secrets of the universe already. Yeah, I'm not going to, yeah.
Or worse, as in the size of the Earth.
Exactly. Yeah, so don't get me wrong, I'm very excited over the next sort of 5 years or so.
Terrified.
And then it's a case of, let's just hope. That's all we can do.
Because if they work out a way to store energy, we can't unplug them.
Yeah, I think you should get rid of the notion that we could ever destroy AGI or ASI. So, yeah. So we're rolling the dice with future, with fate.
It's not the biggest weapon we're now.
It is. This is bigger than the Manhattan Project. The step change that we're about to have is bigger than discovering the atom, in my opinion. It's vast. When you think about it, if even half of what I've said today comes true and we have ASI in, let's say, 2035, it's irrelevant whether it's 2027, 2035. It's the event horizon which we cannot see beyond, and it will be like aliens landing on Earth. And we have to hope like hell we treat AI nicely in the run-up to that. Or, this is why Elon is saying we have to merge. So it's Thanos, but AI. And this is why Elon, now it's starting to make sense. He's been saying for years that unless we merge with AI, we won't be able to control it. We need to basically be the Kimura fish, or the fish that swims with great white sharks? Yeah. Is it something Femora fish or whatever? In order for us to be that little fish that swims with the great white sharks and not be its food, we need to have Neuralink, and we need to. And so this is, and I scared Ellie the other day because I was talking a bit about this. In fact, we had this identical conversation last night. We'll have a new species of human as well. We'll have Homo sapiens and Homo deus. Homo deus will be people that have a Neuralink type chip that can interface with AI and have effectively an AGI as a tool in our brain. If you have an AGI merged with a human, how effective would that human being be compared to a normal human? It's a whole new race. It's Homo deus versus Homo sapien. And I joke with Ellie that I'm going to have her as a little pet human one day. So, yeah.
Wouldn't that make you susceptible to being
controlled? Yes. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm going to do it that soon. We're over time. Okay, I need to get to the end of the slides. This is the most important thing humans have ever done in history. And this chart is, yeah, like the first step. That first step is becoming an AGI being like Alec Radford, but in every discipline of science and intellectual spheres. Because once we get there, everything just goes up. And look, GDP. So, I guess Leopold is also aware of that. Once we get AAAs, GDP is going through the roof. I mean, just think about it. If you are armed with 5, 50, 100 AAAs, your personal GDP would go through the roof, wouldn't it? Now, think about a country doing the same, or a company. It's nuts. Now, we're a bit late for dinner, lunch, so I'm going to quickly knock through my potential peripheral knock-on effects. These are just all my thoughts now. I like a chart, so I was just doodling random charts on some paper the other day, and I was thinking, if you had a chart of non-human work hours and human work hours would dominate the chart right now. But it won't be for long. I reckon that chart of non-human work hours per year is an exponent. It's going to do this. And at what point is non-human work hours going to overtake human work hours? I reckon 2026, 2027. Basically, as soon as AAAs come out. Yeah, mainly in the form of AAAs, and then 28 onwards, bipedals will ramp up. We will see north of 10 billion bipedal robots by 2035. Elon has been saying that for years, and he even says that that's quite conservative. He says most households will have a robot at least, but there will be more. We will be the minority species on Earth by 2035. Yeah, and the cost curve is dropping down exponentially as well. So the cost of having a humanoid robot, as in terms of dollars per hour, it will just go to gross marginal cost. So anything tech related always drops down to gross marginal cost. The prime example of that is the internet. We've got trillions of dollars worth of research, and we get it for, what, £30 a month? With whatever your broadband connection charges. That is the best example of gross marginal cost. Robots, AI, they'll all do the same. And it's hyper deflationary as well. So we don't have time to really go into this right now, but when all of this happens, yes, GDP is going to go through the roof, but prices for everything will drop precipitously. Because one of the other things which is also in exponential growth right now is additive manufacturing, i.e. 3D printing. Once AGI comes around, guess what 3D printing will do? That will bugger off north as well, to the point where it will be like Star Trek. Who's watched Star Trek? And you have the replicator? That will be very, it may not be as good as the Star Trek replicator, but 3D printing will be like that. Like probably 70% of the stuff that you buy won't be from a shop or whatever. You'll just be downloading a schematic and printing it yourself. You want a new electronic whizzer clicker thingy. I won't be buying that from Amazon. I'll be downloading the schematic from Amazon, and my 3D printer will print out a fully functional electronic gizmo or whatever. Like 3D printing will go through the roof. So that is hyper deflationary. Prices for everything will crash. This then exacerbates the global debt issue, which is another reason why I think at some point over the next 6 years, we're going to have the biggest stock market crash that humans have ever seen. So if we have a big crash in 2025, yeah, it'll be bad. But I think probably 2027, 28, we'll probably have, like when the deflationary forces really start kicking in, probably before 2030, maybe 2029, we have a stock market crash that won't V-reverse because everything is already deflationary. And at that point, money becomes like, if you can print most things that you consume, what does that do to GDP? So you have these two things where GDP does go through the roof, but prices also drop through the roof. But it means poverty will be an ancient concept eventually. Once energy production, it already stems from energy production. The poverty curve is inversely correlated to the energy production curve. So when you have energy production, so global energy production, the higher that goes, poverty reduces because the energy production has spill-off effects from food to medicine to water to clean drinking water. It's nuts. All of these exponential curves are just, it's amazing. I love it. I'm losing my voice. 10 billion robots, yep. Yeah, highly deflationary. Yeah, well, we will, if we don't die out, we will have universal high income. So there will be this period where humans will be completely irrelevant in every form, anything work-related. AAAs will do everything a human does. A bipedal with a AAA in it will do everything that we can do. We will be just completely superfluous to planet Earth. Sorry? Maybe, I don't know. But the thing is, so there will be this very tumultuous time where humans will have to be paid so we don't do civil uprising. I mean, mental health issues will go through the roof. I think north of 25% of Americans are already on antidepressants. That's going to go 100% maybe. So there will be weird tax restructuring that will have to happen so that they tax robot companies at source, they tax AI companies and AAA providers at source to provide universal high income. So every human adult will be paid $2,000 a month just to live. So this is why I'm really scared for my kids, because I keep drumming into Ellie that school, we send our kids to the best private school that I think is in Norwich for their age. And then eventually I'll send them to Gresham's, which is, the best private school for bigger kids. But I keep saying to her, honey, it's jack shit. We could literally just homeschool them. It's really just for networking purposes, private schooling. And that everything they're learning at school right now is completely bullshit and irrelevant, because not a single school is aware of all the things I've been harking on about for the last hour and 20 minutes. And so I was thinking, shit, how can we create relevant human beings by the time, they're 16, 18 years old? And I keep coming to the conclusion that they have to become sports people. They have to. Humans have this eternal fascination with other humans who are really good at a certain thing. That's true, right? We love sports stars. We love amazing, talented singers, and so talent, full stop. So I was thinking, holy shit, I've got to just force my kids into one sport and do what Tiger Woods' dad did. Tiger Woods didn't like golf when he was a kid, by the way. His dad forced him into golf. Yeah, he still doesn't like it. But his dad whipped him into golf every day, and Tiger Woods became a legend. So but then I'm thinking, that's cruel, isn't it? Do I want to be cruel to my kids? So I'm constantly weighing up, do I raise kids that become completely irrelevant human beings in the future?
But you have the conversation with
Or,
them about that, though, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's an ongoing thought process.
Be an irrelevant human being or not. Give them the options available.
Exactly. So I think either becoming very good business operators, I think business owners have a role in the future, because business people create things, they provide things, they facilitate stuff. So I think there's still relevancy in that, or become sports stars, or both. And that's why every week I hope they have massive meltdowns when I force them into MMA. So they do. They're very good at MMA, but they cry every week. Oh yeah, I literally just said the next slide. Just my thoughts. I could be going down the wrong path, but Ellie's really annoyed at me at the moment because it's all I'm ever talking about. Because I'm like, how do I fuck up my kids the least amount possible over the next 10 years? And I'm just constantly just paranoid about these exponential growth curves. And I'm like no matter what I do, is all irrelevant. So, at the moment, I've just settled with, can I make them the nicest, goodest human beings possible? Good, if that's not even a good word, is it? That's how well I did at school. Yeah, every issue will be solved. That's just, yeah. We won't solve it. AGI and ASI will. And they'll solve it within a week. It could be it's just nuts. And I think human form robots will be predominant until 2040. Because think about it. If you're creating bipedal robots to navigate the human world, the human world has been created for human form. Fingers, limbs, and stuff like that. But by 2040, I think things will be a lot different, that robots will then be like, we don't really need human form now, do we? So I think the form of robots will actually change to be more efficient. Because the world that we've created is not efficient. It's efficient for monkey-type fingers and limbs. But again, I think anyone that predicts anything beyond 2030, it's just a wild guess. Because again, we cannot see beyond the event horizon. We cannot.
One of the biggest things we need to think about for the future is creating a sense of purpose for human beings, because that's the biggest problem, I think, with mental health issues. It's not having a sense of purpose. And if
I know.
this removes the sense
Mental health will go nuts.
that's perhaps what the biggest thing you can do for your kids.
Well, I still think AGI will solve that, because when you break down mental health disorders, what is it? It's chemical imbalances in certain parts of your brain, and it's a rewiring of how your brain works. So some people with mental issues, it's because they're taking external stimuli. That external stimuli is then creating weird chemical imbalances due to the external stimuli. Technically, mental health is a very easy issue to solve for robots, not us. So I'm pretty sure AGI will be able to, will be able to meter out the chemical imbalances and the way that your brain is wired and how it reacts to external stimuli.
If it is external stimuli.
If it's not external stimuli, then it's internal brain wiring, which again can be rejigged about. So a lot of the big questions and issues we have as humans right now, I think AGI is going to look at it and go, ha, idiots, solve. And it'll take a week. Oh, cancer? Oh, that's a day's worth of work. Yep, I'm running 25 minutes late. Okay, it's out there now. Okay, very quickly, new type of species will emerge, Homo deus, yada, yada, yada. This is really funny. So energy experts are always wrong. This is the IEA's projected solar deployment, right? Up until sort of 2019. And they thought, yeah, it'll be like this, and it'll be like this. And every time they project it. So what did I do? I actually went and Googled and found the actual stats of what's happened over the last 3 years. This is the chart. So in 2021, we had 947 gigawatts of actual deployed solar. 2022, 2023. We don't have 2024 figures yet. This is how fast things are happening, and we're still behind the curve with energy production and generation and storage. But even that chart, scientists can't get their head around. Understand the displacement graph. Yeah, okay, this will be very quick, Lewis. I know, our food's getting cold, my fault. So there are displacement graphs throughout human history. Everything from red fabric dyes, so natural to synthetic, it flops over. Insulin, from animal-derived to recombinant, don't know what that is, but it flips. Video rental, from physical to digital. Cameras, film to digital. Corn, non-GMO to GMO. Like, can you see a curve here? As tech progresses, things get displaced. Humans are also going to get displaced. Nails go from cut to wire. Coal from bituminous and anthracite. Again, I'm saying words I don't understand here. Car tires from non-radial to radial. I don't even understand that. They all, yeah. UK power from town gas or coal to natural gas. TV screens, CRT to LCD. Like, the list goes on and on. Crystal meth production. Don't know what that is. Transatlantic travel from diesel ship to airplane. Horses and automobiles. Degen dress sense from Siam to Steve over time. I'm making him, oh yeah, there we go. I almost wore a shirt today just to prove a point for that one there. Fiscal silliness, Siam and Steve. Guess what, I'm more fiscal responsible than Steve these days, I reckon. Yeah, and he's my accountant. And the last chart, which I didn't put, is literally humans and AI and robot. Like, think of a chart, it's going to be doing that.